Hello everyone and welcome to Cappuccino with HR. My name is Rudi Bauer, and after 40 years in business, I'm 100% sure that the success of companies is directly related to the passion of the people working for these companies. With the Cappuccino of HR, we created a format where we really invite people, it's HR leaders, it's recruiters, it's talent acquisition guys, and we're talking about all the different kind of topics, and the range is going from AI, of course, to new work, to leadership, and all the challenges along the way.
Yeah, hello and welcome to another episode of Cappuccino with HR. And today I'm really delighted to have Barbara Greutter as my guest. I'm really happy to have her. And we're talking about, she has a hell of a lot of experience. I was looking into her LinkedIn profile, and I was really surprised by so many different stations, by so many different kind of jobs, and then so many different kind of profiles. So welcome, Barbara. It's really nice to have you.
Thank you. Thank you very much for the invitation. I'm looking forward to our conversation.
And today we are really talking about, companies normally run through stages. So it normally starts as a startup. It probably, if it works out, you have some investment rounds, which you have to solve as well. And I think the title that I have chosen for myself, I hope it's okay for you as well, Barbara, is From Data Keeper to Culture Shaper. Because I like this very much, because when we started as a startup and when I joined the company, we're developers, we still were in a kind of a startup phase. And then we came up to a point where we said, okay, now it probably could make sense to recruit someone for the HR function. And in the beginning, I think our mindset in the board was, okay, we need someone who tracks the data in an Excel spreadsheet, or probably implements the first ATS system and the first HR software within our company. And then we came to a point where we really saw extremely quick that it has a lot to do with shaping the culture. So we will come to that point. But before we start, may I ask you to introduce yourself in a few sentences?
Yeah, thank you. So I have worked in HR my entire life. So I've had a typical HR career in mainly listed companies up to CHRO level. And then in 2020, I set up my own consulting business. That was also the time where I came back to Austria after having lived abroad for about 18 years. And in my consulting business, my clients are a mix of small and large companies, and mainly companies that go through a lot of change, hypergrowth, transformation, M&A. So I also work with a couple of smaller companies. I also held a CHRO role for 2.5 years in Sweden in a tech company that had planned a private equity exit. And at the beginning of this year, came back to Austria, and back to fully consulting. In parallel, I've always followed an academic career. So I'm actually at the stage where I'm about to finish my PhD in corporate entrepreneurship and innovation, and also wrote about HR and private equities.
And the second question that I have to ask everyone, because it's called Cappuccino with HR, Barbara, what's your favorite coffee?
So I do like cappuccino a lot. I think it's indulgence, right? So that's why I have to reduce it. So one cup a day probably, and then the rest would be Americanos, because since I've lived in Sweden, I took up that habit of drinking even strong filter coffee or Americanos. So I've kept that habit now.
It's a good one. I love Americano as well. So I think Americano is a really good one. It's probably underestimated in Austria, so we don't even know it. But I think it's a really good one. Yeah. Okay, let's jump in. And I want to start with a question. How do you see that HR function? I described it a little bit in our own case, but how do HR function typically emerge from an early startup to later phases? What is the change? Is it really from taking care about some data and collecting some data to shaping the culture?
I think, what you describe is very typical, right? So, in fact, the questions about talent, about structure, org design, how do we reward, what kind of culture do we want to have? They are there from the very beginning, but very early on, the entrepreneurs often say, hey, we can do that. It's part of our leadership role. And then when the workload of administering employees, becomes too heavy, then they bring in an HR person and start with the admin side of things. I think then you're already behind the curve, right? So the challenge when you're in a small company is how can you stay ahead of the curve? How can you have an HR function that is ahead of the curve, that really helps you shape the company and proactively build what is needed and bring in the right talent? So I would say today there are many entrepreneurs who have understood that and who said, okay, I outsource, the admin part to maybe a payroll vendor or even a tax advisor, and I bring in an on-demand fractional CHRO as a sparring partner on topics like talent, culture, org design. I mean, my smallest client has 3 founders, right? And no employees at the moment, but still we are having these conversations. So I would say there is a shift, so what you describe has been the typical emergence. Let's start with the admin and then later let's turn it into a true HR function. But I would say it's a mistake because many small companies actually fail because of team effectiveness issues or not having the right talent or having bottlenecks when it comes to scaling. So in order to stay ahead of the curve, I think it's worthwhile bringing in a strategic partner, even if it's just a few hours a month in the beginning, bringing in a strategic partner early on.
What do you think is the most dangerous trap that you can fall in during this process or during this evaluation? Yeah.
I think the most dangerous trap is that, well, as I said, you are reactive, right? So that you are, the workload is there and somebody needs to do it. You say, let's focus on the business first and let's do the other things later. And then suddenly they become a problem, right? And you are already lagging behind. So I would say the most dangerous trap is that you're not proactive enough, that you're underestimating even the early challenges of team effectiveness, of having the right talent. Startups often startup leaders tend to bring in like their friends and network, right? Their known partners, the people that they work with well, but that doesn't necessarily mean it's the right talent for the business, for the future. And of course, it's the nature of a small company that people are generalists, right? They cover a lot of things. But still, it's worthwhile, I think, early on to think about a meaningful org design, how will we, when the workload gets heavier, what is your focus area? What is my focus area? So some minimum org design early on also makes a lot of sense.
Do you think that HR is becoming enough attention from company leaders currently?
Unfortunately not, right? So HR is still seen as a service function or a support function. And I think per se is the wrong approach because, you feel like there's a business on one side and there's HR on the other side, right? And HR be an integral part of the business, really helping shape the business. Having the right talent can be a real, business driver and enhance the business success. So I think, unfortunately, HR is often not getting the attention and only seen as overhead, which means underestimating the role that HR can play in really being a growth driver, and being a revenue generator in the farther sense of the word.
What does it mean? What does it mean for HR and what does it mean for leadership if it comes to accepting this kind of facts? What kind of skill is needed on the HR side to really run that into the right direction and bring that in the right direction? On the other hand, what skill is needed from leaders to accept that this could be a kind of a massive, could have a massive impact on the success of the company as well?
So HR people need to be business people. So they need to understand the business model. They need to understand the ecosystem. They need to understand the environment that the business operates in. They can't just say, hey, we focus on our internal, people and processes. So HR people have to be, really closely involved in the business and understand the business, speak the language of the business, to be credible partners. So co-lead the company in a way, right? And then business leaders, of course, need to give that room, to HR, but I wouldn't say it's an entitlement. It also means that they have to hire HR people that, understand the business, that are at eye level, that are real sparring partners, not save costs and say, I'm just, hiring an admin plus, right, that does a little bit of HR. So recognize the function and the value that the function can bring.
As you are currently working with your own company, and I think you're doing a lot of advisories for executives, and you are also working as an interim CHRO in some companies. How do you normally step into it? I mean, you have to deal with the situation that every single client has got his own business. Every single client has got his own situation. So you have to adapt extremely quick. Do you have some tips or hints for HR people how to come into the position of being respected, getting a seat at a big table and understanding the business? Which questions do you normally ask at the beginning if you enter a new client? What is a kind of a probably 3, 4, 5-step plan to really get into it quickly?
Yeah, I would always ask the question, about the business. Explain to me, what is the business? How is it working? Where does the revenue come from? What are your challenges at the moment at the business level? What are, the immediate future plans? I also try to understand the stakeholder landscape. So that means, for example, we spoke about private equity versus listed, right? So who's on the board? What are the primary stakeholders in terms of owners, but also, of course, or investors, but also in terms of clients, customers. So really get a full picture, not just of the immediate HR challenges. So I always start with that. Then, of course, go to the the needs, the immediate needs. Why do they bring in an interim? Where do they see the priorities? What have they tried that haven't worked? What would make the biggest difference? I really try to understand the impact that they expect from me rather than the activities, right? So I think as an HR professional, you can then set your own priorities and say, oh, these are the processes that will get to that impact, but trying to understand the impact that they expect from me.
Mm-hmm. And
getting to know the people. I think that's of course essential, right? Getting to know the people that I will work with and in the organization.
Mm-hmm. And I mean, if you build a startup, I mean, as you described it, I mean, it's starting with family and friends. Yeah, I mean, it is somebody knows one who knows one, and then these 2 guys or 3 guys have an idea and they would start building it. And I think I did it myself, and it's really great fun. I think this is, I always call this jungle culture. So you meet in the morning, then you say, okay, I'm going my path, you're going your route, and you're going your route. And we meet at lunchtime, and then we do the same in the afternoon, we meet in the evening. And the only sync options are in the morning, probably at lunch, and in the evening. And the rest, the experts are doing what they are used to do. And then it becomes a village, and after then it becomes probably a big city, and you need rules. And how could HR help to build a culture and a structure to really at the same time without killing the agility?
Yeah, I think, well, first of all, HR needs to understand what is really the DNA of the company and make sure that is preserved, right? What makes us unique? What are the things that we are particularly proud of? What are the things that we would never tolerate, right? Understand culture and DNA that makes the company unique, and make sure that this is really preserved or it's brought to the next level, but it's not destroyed, right? Not do things that destroy the culture. Not never bring in process for the sake of process, right? So always bear in mind, what is the specific context? What is the problem we are trying to solve, right? nowhere else we are bringing in solutions without understanding the problem, right? So I would say understanding the context, understanding the culture, and what makes the company unique, and really prioritize in a very rigorous way. Sometimes HR has the tendency to say, oh, this is best practice, and this is best practice talent management, and this is what Gartner says. I would be very cautious with that, because it's not about what best practice says. It's about what this business needs, what is really making a big difference here at the moment, for the current situation, and also helping us further grow. So make very context-specific decisions. And that means some processes that are standard in other companies might not be needed here, right? So I would say these are the key things. I would start, you said, from data keeper to culture guardian. I think data helps making decisions, right? So if it's not just there for the sake of admin, but if you use data wisely, data and have understanding the context together helps you come to the best decisions. Yeah.
That means HR also needs a kind of a really deep tech knowledge and understanding data, interpreting data right, preparing data, setting them up for as decision based.
I would say in today's world, yes, absolutely. I think we have so much data available. Of course, I mean, if we speak about a startup and a small company, I mean, the big advantage is, like you said, it's a village, right? Everybody knows everybody. You have easy access to people. You have, short distances to get to know people. So, of course, in the beginning, that seems a bit, unnecessary to track data. But at least understanding, what data will drive which decision helps you build a model and get there. So I would say yes, absolutely. HR needs to have that understanding.
And
because you don't want to bring in a lot of HR resources just to manage the administrative and operational processes.
And if companies are becoming successful, if the business is growing, if new investors are coming in, that normally has a big impact on the culture as well. How could HR balance that one? Because I know some companies, they started as a startup somewhere in Upper Austria, then they became extremely successful, really extremely successful on a global scale, and they're really suffering. If you talk to the people that are on board for quite a long time within the organization, that felt this kind of startup spirit, this family spirit, how could HR then support to really overcome that? Because I think that's a really dangerous phase in the development of an organization, to fall apart, because if you lose this family spirit and become a kind of a corporate later on with a hell of a lot of rules, what is your tip, and what could companies do to really, and what could especially HR do to really keep that stable? Yeah.
Well, I would say, first of all, communicate, and always be transparent about what's going on, and make sure people, understand the why. Why are we doing this? What is the benefit for me? What are we heading towards? What is the ultimate objective of going where we are going? And work with the people, not do things to the people, but really work with people. They understand the business best. They can also help, build the best process for the future. So I would say that to me is a golden rule. There is a bit of a challenge, because when companies get bigger, the very broad roles that everybody had become smaller and narrower, right? So there are certain specialists. With that, you have more interfaces. With that, you have to have better understanding of where's the handover, how do we manage certain decisions, what is the organizational design. So I would say that requires a lot of communication and a lot of working with the people. Um, Again, also the investors, they might see things through a different lens, right? Things that are the founder team is very attached to and very proud of are suddenly scrutinized and are seen through a different lens. And I would say, coming from a private equity background, everything that's not working well is an opportunity for improvement. You know, if you have culture and that mindset, and say it's not a criticism, it's not a criticism of the past, right? But everything that we see that is not working perfectly well is an opportunity for the future and will help us create even more value for the future. So I would always put the focus on the future vision, right? Nobody likes it when the past is being scrutinized, when they feel that the hard work what they have done today is not valued, right? Building the tradition for the future together, I think that's really important in this phase.
Do you think that HR or the HR scenery that you know is bold enough to go on this kind of confrontational track? Because I think it's confronting managers and leaders with the truth. It's really speaking extremely open. And as you said, okay, it has nothing to do with what we did was bad. It has more to do what is needed in the future.
Exactly.
Do you think that HR is bold enough or brave enough?
I think HR has a way to go, right? HR sometimes is too procedural, right? And not good enough at explaining why are we doing this, you know, what are we trying to achieve? So and sometimes too much of a like a strict, you know, father figure, and I think that's not good. I read a book by an author called Lucy Adams, and she said HR is not the caring mother and HR is not the strict father, right? So we are not dealing with children, we're dealing with adults in a business context. And I really like that, you know. I think we need to come with that mindset of saying we're dealing with adults in a business context, we are in this together. And again, it comes back to what we discussed earlier, right? Are being an integral part of the business with the same challenges and not always having every answer, and you know, finding it together, and the leaders also acknowledging that value in that sparring partnership, you know. So it's I don't think HR is fully there. I think sometimes HR comes with solutions that worked in previous companies, or that that they think is what it should be like, without really asking the question, is this what the business needs right now?
If you look on your broad experience, many years in HR, is there something which you say, okay, we have reached a point now where we need to unlearn one specific thing as HR?
That's a very good question. I don't know. I think we need to keep curiosity, right? So even the most experienced HR people need to keep that curious mindset and say, hey, this is a new situation, a new business, a new context. And I have, even if I have a wealth of experience, you know, it's not a cookie cutter solution that I can come with. So I think keeping that curiosity and that learning mindset, that is important.
And there's a lot of discussions currently going on. I mean, if you look on as candidates start using ChatGPT for looking for jobs, companies are using ChatGPT for writing job ads, for example. I mean, at the end of the day, we are coming to a mechanism that probably we can't continue like we did with job boards and job descriptions and all this kind of thing, because we're coming to kind of a skills-based kind of modality. So, and my impression is, I mean, I personally stopped reading CVs many years ago, because I found it extremely unuseful if I want to find someone to go together into the future, to deal a lot and spend hours of taking care about the history of this person. So I stopped doing it. I I said the most useful way for me always was to get the people in front of my desk and have a chat with them. Yeah. And then look into their eyes, and if the sparkle comes, if I tell what I want to achieve, then it normally worked out pretty well. But do you think that we need to come to a point where we open up for skill-based talent management more than what we do now? We are watching CVs, we are having a look on educational things, and then
Yeah, 100%, 100%. I truly believe we need to look at skills, we need to look at personality trait and mindset. How do people approach certain problems? Here maybe the CV is relevant, right? You can ask, how have you solved this problem in the past? What was the outcome, what was the learning, but not in terms of have you done it tick, right? So that doesn't. And I mean, coming back to your initial comment, the job description is written by ChatGPT, the CV is written by ChatGPT. It's not like a puzzle, where you have a static job and a static person, and you find that match. The moment the job description is written, the job is already different, right? Because we are in dynamic environments, in dynamic businesses, and often from the first interview to the date where you start in the company, things have moved on, right? So you can't look at this as a static matchmaking, right? With one, I don't know, do you fit the mold? That's, I think, the wrong approach. You really need to be more strategic and say, these are the challenges that we need to manage in the future. This is the vision that we are working towards. This is our culture. And then work from there and say who is fitting, into that company. And then, of course, there's always a situation where you say we have certain competency gaps. We need a specialist in X, and we need somebody who brings that. But I think the majority is on trying to understand, what are the challenges ahead of us? What what kind of person do we need to meet those challenges?
I mean, a totally different question, but it fits too, because I wanted to ask you, probably we can take this first. What do you think is the skill or the major skill that future leaders will need? So probably we can start with that one first, if you have an answer on this one.
I think in all the complexity that we have, really setting priorities and applying judgment to, where do I put my, bets? Where do I focus? What are the opportunities in that environment? What are the challenges? So that judgment, decisiveness, prioritization within the complex environment, I think that's a big requirement. And with that comes also, judging the people, and understanding, who works best as an employee in that environment.
And the next question on that would be, I mean, we always, or sometimes have the impression we mix up managers and leaders. And for me, there's a big difference, and I want to get your take on this. Do you see a difference between managers and leaders, or is it the same? Or
your manager for me has the connotation of it's procedural, right? There are certain processes. You need to do the annual review and the salary review and the time tracking and the holiday requests and all of that. So that is for me managing, or saying, I don't know, planning shifts. It's more organizational, operational, administrative. Leading to me is really, as I said, setting priorities, getting the people inspired, for these priorities, helping them develop the skills that are needed in the future, aligning everybody towards a common vision, a common goal, resolving conflict when it comes out, providing clarity. That is for me leading, building that cohesion in the team, getting the best out of everyone, right? So that is leading.
When I was looking up management positions for myself in the 90s, I mean, I think one of the one of the biggest skills that I always found as a kind of a mandatory must was self-confidence.
Mhm.
Have we reached a level or the complexity level now where self-confidence as a leader could be hindering already?
Yeah, I mean, I could go now on a tangent about, male leadership and female leadership. Yeah, the importance of charisma. I
Mhm.
think I, it takes certain confidence to have
Yeah, of
for
course.
make decisions, because you always make decisions without having full information. So
Yeah.
it does take a certain confidence to do that. There's a fine line between confidence and arrogance.
Mhm.
And I think there's an underestimation of the quiet people, right? Because we are so used to these charismatic, shiny personalities, and that's dangerous. And I think the world is showing how dangerous that is, right? So I would say humility is as important as confidence, right? So having that humility, that understanding that you are not always right, that there is maybe not always one single truth, having the openness to listen to other stakeholders, having the openness to change your mind, to acknowledge a mistake and change the course of action. I think that is also very important. So when self-confidence becomes arrogance, it becomes very dangerous, I would say.
I think that I see it the same way you. As we're coming to the end, I mean, the time is passing so quickly. That's amazing. I have one question which I would really love to ask you as well. If you could redesign the first 100 days of any new HR leader's role, do you have a kind of a blueprint with 3-4 steps that you would say that is most important if you start?
I think it is important from the very beginning to see the truth, right? So that that you don't get an embellished version of the company describing a culture that is in reality not there, or talking more about the vision than the reality. So as having that opportunity very early on to meet as many stakeholders as possible, to see the true picture of the business, to also see the not so nice parts, that helps you become a problem solver, right, and become part of the solution, and not running off with a mandate without verifying, is this really what the company needs, right? But really building your own judgment first. So I think that's what I would put on in focus for the first 100 days. Knowing, understanding the business, understanding the people, meeting the people and the stakeholders. I think that's essential at the beginning. And if you don't do that early on, you're running off at the wrong direction.
We come to the end, and what I normally do with my guests is I play a short round of this and that, this or that. So I would really ask you to quickly answer without thinking too much. So let's start with that one: structured clarity or agile experimentation?
Experimentation.
Cost efficiency or growth investment?
Profitable growth.
People first or business first?
I think that should never be a contradiction. So if that becomes a contradiction, you have made mistakes in the past, I would say. So yeah, it's the people who make the business, but you serve the business ultimately, right? So everything you do has to make business sense, and if you have the right people on board, then it's also right for the people.
Hypergrowth pressure or large scale governance?
For me personally, I enjoy the hypergrowth pressure more.
Okay. And the last one is, I think it's very difficult to answer because you gave already an answer, but it's cappuccino or Americano.
It's also both. I don't want to come to the either or.
Yeah, I did a really nice episode with the CHRO and member of the board of Daimler Trucks, and we were talking about do we need to get rid of the or and put an end in between. So I think that's probably a really interesting thing. So it could, I think there's space for, many times there's space for an and instead of an or, and that would make our world probably a much better place.
And I think that is the role of responsible leaders, right?
Yeah.
To say, it's exactly my role to find the sweet spot where a solution meets the needs of the people and the business, right? So that's exactly my and leadership is about managing paradoxes, right? So managing growth as well as cost efficiency, managing innovation as well as ongoing operations. It's all about paradoxes. So it should be an or.
Really. And the last one, because we are coming close to Christmas, and if Aladdin with his magic lamp would show up at you now and you could ask you for one wish, what would it be? It could be a private one or it could be a business related one, whatever you pick.
I had a big wish, like that the world goes into a direction of more peace, and like geopolitical stability. So that would be my biggest wish.
Very cool. Barbara, it was a pleasure having you as guest. Thank you so much for taking your time. Thank you so much for sharing a massive experience with the audience. I really enjoyed this conversation. I hope you did as well.
Yeah.
So the audience, I hope you do the same. So it was really great fun for me. So thank you so much for your time and goodbye.
Thank you.
Thank you for watching Cappuccino with HR. If you enjoy this kind of conversations, please don't forget to hit the subscribe button. Then you get all this kind of upfront information, your upcoming episodes, and all my nice guests. Cappuccino with HR is brought to you by We Are Developers, Europe's #1 developer community and a leading platform for connecting HR and companies together with developers. If you want to learn more, visit us on wearedevelopers.com. Thank you again for watching and see you next time on Cappuccino with HR.